All right, we have two great speakers today. Our first speaker is Luis Alvarez. He's CEO and president of Alvarez Technology Group, and he has been in the IT business for a long, long time. This particular company, it's I think his second one. He's been at it for 17 years with a focus on IT. And we've talked a lot about the convergence of IT and OT. Luis has been working with us and sees Commander as an incredibly powerful platform to continue to grow his managed services business. And he's going to talk about that today. So let's welcome Luis to the stage.
Thank you, sir. My hair was darker back then. How are we all doing? Good. Enjoying it so far? Yeah. You know, after today, you'll be certified geniuses. You work at the Apple Genius Bar. You can do all those sort of stuff. But thank you for being here. I'm the obligatory managed services guy, and I'm going to be talking about managed services in a little bit. I'm also the only thing standing between you and whiskey tasting tonight, so no, a lot of other stuff. Wouldn't it, breakfast whiskey would be nice, though, wouldn't that be? Make the rest of the day go by so much faster. We can have the next slide. So we're going to talk about managed services around the Internet of Things and talk about what's possible. Oh, look, I have this thing. So that's me, my company. Like Richard said, we've been in business 17 years. And in Salinas, California, anybody know where Salinas is? Ever been there? Oh, good. Yeah, Steinbeck country. John Steinbeck was from there, and he's all over the place. He slept here. He did this. Every building you go into, he touched in some way. And unfortunately, Salinas in a lot of ways hasn't changed in the 60 years since he wrote the book. So if you go there, you'll see some of the same buildings. But it's prime ag country. And a lot of the work that we do is with agriculture, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And that's how we really started our business. The idea was that we wanted to help these companies be successful, and we had our original mission statement that we developed was make downtime obsolete, because our focus was all on making the systems that our clients use run and continue to run successfully without letting them interrupt their business. But like any business, probably like your businesses, we have evolved and we've matured, and our business model has changed. And we went from a traditional break-fix type of business to managed services. And with that came an understanding that what we do isn't about the systems, it's about the companies and the people that we support. So our mission statement has evolved because we recognize that we work with a lot of really wonderful companies that are trying to accomplish some really significant things. And we want to help them get those things done by using what we have expertise in, which is technology. So enabling great organizations to accomplish big things using technology is what we are all about today. So, we started, like I said, as an IT services company. This is my second company. After I left my first one, I promised myself that I was never going to run another company because we had grown that company to about 100 and some odd people. And when you have that many people and you're the CEO, what are you? The chief babysitter. And that's what I spent most of my time doing, was babysitting. So when we sold that company and all the partners retired, and I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm just going to be a consultant. That lasted about 6 weeks. And I started this company, and proverbial California story in my garage. And over time, we started adding employees, found an office, but we were still doing primarily break-fix. But after a couple of years, we had about 4 consultants, and we were doing pretty good. But we knew that there was an evolution happening in our industry. People didn't want to pay time and materials anymore. They wanted something different. And so in 2006, we took a look at something that at that point was relatively new in the IT industry called managed services. And the idea behind managed services is you go from a time and materials world to a flat fee, monthly recurring revenue world. And that's a really hard leap to make, because the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what do I charge? How do I make sure that I don't lose money in the things that I do? And so we spent probably weeks kind of working around this idea before we finally said, okay, let's come up with something, and whatever that something is, we know that we can change it. If it doesn't work out, we're not stuck with it, we can change the pricing model. So we approached some of our best clients, the ones that have been with us for a while, and said, hey, we want to move you to this. They didn't buy into the Kool-Aid because they didn't understand how we were going to make money, and they were afraid we were going to go out of business, quite frankly. But they finally took the leap with us. And so now we've grown the business so that about 70% of our revenue is monthly recurring revenue. And our gross margins are somewhere between 65 and 70% a month, because we're really efficient and really good at what we do, and we use automation quite a bit. The other 30-some-odd% of our business is really projects and the sort of things that we do for our existing clients. We don't do business without a monthly recurring revenue agreement in place. So if you want our expertise, if you want to do business with us, you got to sign a contract. Otherwise, we just don't work with you. So, of course, as we've matured in our managed services practice, we've become members of many organizations, won a lot of awards, a lot of recognitions. My favorite one, and the one that I take greatest pride in, is that we've been on the Inc. 5000 list 6 years in a row as the fastest growing private company, or one of the fastest growing private companies in America. And I think that's a testament to the fact that the managed services model works, and we can build on that, and we can develop more around that managed services practice, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, what is managed services? Well, it means different things to different people, and it means nothing to a whole lot of people, because you have to explain yourself. Ostensibly, what we're really talking about is outsourcing the management of somebody's services or systems, generally for a flat fee or some sort of scaling fee. Typically, it's a flat fee. And you get monthly recurring revenue, your clients get proactive support. And that's the key part here, is proactive. You can't develop managed services and expect that they're just going to call you and tell you there's a problem and then you respond to it. You have to be proactive. You have to use, in our case, a lot of technology, a lot of automation. And there's a lot of different kinds of managed services. We started primarily as an IT infrastructure managed services provider. We took care of PCs, networks, systems, that sort of stuff. And in that IT space, there are also companies that do nothing more than manage print services. They manage a fleet of printers for large organizations. Could be a bank, could be hospitals, and they do it quite well. There's other kind of managed services around this IT space. More and more, we're seeing security as a managed service. You hear this term managed security service provider, MSSP. We actually have a division within our company that we spun up about 3 years ago around security. It's very successful around cybersecurity. Lots of compliance issues and regulatory issues, especially in California, right? One of the most heavily regulated economies in the world. That works in our favor, by the way, because that regulation, those compliance requirements means that our clients need to do this. This isn't optional to them. So we've spun up a managed security practice. And now you're seeing managed services around cloud services. These are things like Salesforce, Azure, Microsoft Office 365, Amazon Web Services. And there are companies that all they do is maintain that technology for their clients. They don't do infrastructure, they don't do security, they just maintain AWS, and it works for them. So my point here is that managed services can be largely whatever you want it to be, so long as it falls within this framework of proactive management of systems and services for a flat fee. So what are some of the opportunities around IoT? Well, I'll start with this term IoT. How many of you, before you came here, had heard IoT? I should have asked the other way around, but okay, I get it. In our world, IoT is becoming something that people talk less and less about. Why? Because it's kind of nebulous. It's hard to explain. More and more, what you're hearing in our world is something called edge computing. That slide didn't turn out well. And edge computing talks about the fact that all of this new technology that's being deployed at the edge, these smart devices are starting to become more and more prolific. And that's where a lot of companies want to focus on. So what does that look like? Here's a stack, right? So at the very top, you still have the cloud, because the cloud is a critical component for edge computing. That's where all the computing part of it, the analytics part of it, the data collection, the data storage, that's where that happens. At the bottom, you have all the sensors. This is the world that you guys are most familiar with, right? All those things that get plugged into buildings, get plugged into cars, get plugged into, in my case, fields where they grow lettuce and artichokes. And in the center is the devices that take that data that's coming from the edge and they take it up into the cloud. And that's what Commander does, right? That's where we plug everything into so that we can evaluate all of these edge devices. So edge computing is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our business as our clients move into this space. The spend this year, 2018, in edge devices is expected to be 3 times what it is in the data center, which is the traditional place that we used to work. We worked in server farms. We worked in desktop PCs. All that world is disappearing, and these decisions to spend money at the edge is what's compelling us to move into this IoT space or this edge computing space. Who knows this person? Yep. Terrific lady. I've had numerous opportunities to hear her speak, and she's fascinating. And until the end of this month, she's CEO of HPE, which is one of the divisions that HP broke off into. That was her idea, which those of us that are HP partners will tell you that if it wasn't for Meg and her ideas since she took over, I don't think HP would be here today. It was headed down a really, really dark funnel. But she's a very smart lady, and at the HPE Partner Conference last year, she talked a lot about edge computing. One of the challenges that tech companies have, tech companies like Cisco, Microsoft, IBM, HP, Dell, Intel, is that they're recognizing that their bread and butter, the thing that they have been exploiting and making money on for the last 20, 30 years is disappearing. You know, who's seen that Apple commercial with a little girl with the iPad that says, "What's a computer?" That's true. We have clients that are actually getting rid of computers, and they're just sticking with their tablets and their smartphones, because that's all they need. Imagine the world where desktop computers cease to be. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but Meg sees that that's a distinct possibility. So HPE is moving very fast into this edge computing space. And she said this: as industries transition, legacy industrial infrastructure like manufacturing firms, manufacturing floors, transportation systems, energy infrastructure, and even cities themselves, as they move to the digital world, we're seeing an explosion of data at the edge. And we believe this movement toward the edge will eventually disrupt the cloud. What she means is that there are researchers today who will tell you that the cloud has, this phenomenon known as cloud computing has reached its zenith, and that the future is going to be in edge computing, that at some point in the next 10 to 20 years, there will be more computing power at the edge than there will be in the cloud. And that means that we can do more things and interface with more things than ever before. And I tend to agree with her. So this is what HP thinks the market this year will look like. And if you look at the screen at the top, of course, is the traditional stuff that goes into the data center. In the center, you'll see what's called the intelligent edge. And you can see that the IoT part of it, from HP's perspective, they think it's a small but growing piece of the business. I want to draw your attention to the bottom, because that, my friends, is where we are going to make our money, in those services. The service industry, the service component of technology deployment is huge. And that's where you make better margins. That's where you make the most money. So what are some of the areas that you can make money on? In our world of systems integration, I don't pretend to be you guys. I understand what you do. But my job for my clients is to help integrate all of this technology. When they come to me and they say, hey, we want to automate our manufacturing floor and we need some IP addresses. we say, okay, we'll get you some IP addresses, but what are we going to do with that technology? How is that going to integrate into our environment? How can we help service that? We want to be, we're your IT department, which is what we function as, so we need to manage this technology. We're embracing that stuff. In the past, we would have just said, here's your IP addresses, figure it out. But we recognize that we need to get involved in a very holistic way in managing all these little pieces, otherwise we're going to be left out. Data transparency and exploitation, business intelligence, data analytics, there's a lot of phrases for this, but a lot of data, as Meg pointed out, is being collected. The question is, what do you do with that data? And does that data matter? And I came up in one of the sessions that I was attending yesterday, was, okay, well, you get all this data, what do you do with it? Well, that's the thing. You don't know what to do with it until you have it. It's kind of the chicken or the egg thing, right? You don't know what you don't know. But as soon as you start gathering this information, you will gain insights. That's why they call it analytics. They don't call it, here's what you got. In California, for example, there's a big move for sustainability. Sustainability, everything's about sustainability. And sustainability, again, means different things to different people. But in the building industry, what it means that more and more of the buildings that are being built are much more energy efficient. They're much more environmentally friendly. There are companies actually pay more money for these green buildings than they would otherwise pay because they want to be known as a sustainable company. It's part of their, especially in the tech world, right? These guys are all environmentalists, freako wackos, and they just want to make sure that the environment survives, so they spend a lot of money making that happen. And they collect a lot of data, and they share that data, so that means that the next generation of buildings get more efficient and more effective. And then managed services. Somebody's going to have to manage this stuff. As it gets deployed out there, there's going to be a need for somebody to manage all this stuff. How many of you are having problems hiring good people? Right? We are. It's a huge struggle for us. Salinas, by the way, is 50 miles south of Silicon Valley. So that makes it a real challenge for us to keep technical talent because they can go up to San Jose or Santa Clara and make twice as much money as I can pay them. And that's just a factor of life. If it's hard for us to hire people to manage all this stuff, to help manage all this stuff for our clients, imagine our clients. We have clients that have basically gotten rid of their IT department because they couldn't find people anymore, and they've come to us. They said, look, you go hire the right people. I don't want to deal with this headache anymore. And as technology gets deployed, you're going to see more and more of that. And we're talking in 2018 about a $152 billion opportunity, just managed services. I just want 1/10 of 1% of that, and I'll be a happy camper. All right, so in the few minutes that I have left, I want to talk to you about a case study, a real-world experience that we are living right now with an organization known as Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine. What was the single most important event in California on January 1st, 2018? Pot. Mary Jane. Reefer Madness. Yeah, how many of you remember Reefer Madness? Yeah, love that. So Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine is a medical marijuana dispensary. For the 4 of you that have never been in one out there, this is what it looks like. The rest of you are very familiar with it. So medical marijuana dispensary that is now converting into a adult use marijuana dispensary. We don't call it recreational, we call it adult use. We want to be very specific that you have to be 18 years or older to get high. So they came to us about the middle of last year when they got their permit. Now, understand that when California passed the law, Californians voted for the law to legalize marijuana in 2017, the state didn't really have any plans for how to do that. So they've been scrambling ever since to create a regulatory framework around it because what did I say about California? They've never met a regulation they didn't like. So they wanted to make sure that if we were going to be able to eat brownies laced with THC or eat cookies that were full of THC or ointments or smoke or whatever we want to do, we were going to be regulated. So they developed a series of regulations that tightly enforced how marijuana is grown. It can only be grown indoors. Challenge number one. About how it can be produced, how it has to be tested, how it can be sold, how it has to be secured. And so all of these things represented challenges to several of the cannabis companies that in Monterey County, where Salinas is at, had to deal with. And so they came to us and they said, help us solve this problem. We looked at it initially as a technology problem. They needed a point-of-sale system that was capable of handling the volume that, from a medical marijuana perspective to adult use, was going to change. They needed to have systems in place to help them with their wireless, because they had a lot of equipment that was all wireless-based. They were buying warehouses that they were going to convert to grow facilities. So they came to us and said, okay, help us with all this stuff. And we quickly realized that this was not just going to be about PCs and servers. So this eye chart that you can see, this is what their network looks like. It's in 2 locations in 2 parts of Monterey County. There's 152 devices with IP addresses. There are more devices that talk to those devices with IP addresses, mind you, but these are the 152 that we have on our system that we're managing proactively. Of those, only 35 are what we traditionally would have worked on. The rest are what we consider to be IoT devices. Everything, and I'll show you a few pictures here in a second, but everything from Wi-Fi to temperature sensors to power sensors, and that's where Commander comes into play. So we're managing the frickin' ATM machines. It's an all-cash business. So you got to have ATM machines in each dispensary so people can withdraw cash when they see that pretty shiny cookie that they have to have. So this is some pictures of their new warehouse. They just bought this December 17th. One of the things that happened was medical marijuana dispensaries that were jumping into this business didn't know what to expect. Now, many of you think, when you think about marijuana growers, you're thinking Birkenstock wearing ponytail guys, who never bathe and have big beards. Yes, they are just like that. There's a lot of them just like that. But there are also venture capitalists that see this as a huge opportunity. In California alone, they expect it to add $4 to $6 billion to the economy. Fun fact, 50% of all marijuana sales and marijuana-related sales in the United States are consumed in California. 60% of that 50% is consumed in the LA basin. It explains so much, doesn't it? It does. So they didn't know what to expect, but when they opened the doors January 1st, they actually didn't have as much traffic as they expected. January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, however, it exploded. Most people didn't go on the 1st because it was a holiday. They were probably a little hungover from the night before. And many people thought, oh, it's going to be super crowded. I'll just wait a couple days. So within the first week, all the dispensaries in Monterey County ran out of product. That's right. It's crazy times. I even bought some because I could now. So they're now setting up this facility to grow indoors. It's a warehouse. They have to retrofit everything. Because you grow indoors, you have to put lights in there. You have to put all sorts of technology to support this stuff. They also have these safes. Did I mention it was an all-cash business? There are 10 of these big boys that they got in this room. 3 of them are full of cash in the 14 days that they've been in business. They're buying 3 more. These are smart safes. They are designed to be tamper-proof. They can only open at certain times. They have to be, 2 people have to enter codes. And they can also be managed. We learned that. We said, hey, we can plug these things into our network and manage them for you and alert on things. So they want us to do that. Surveillance systems, like I said, managed Wi-Fi. We're managing, instead of selling them their Wi-Fi, we decided that we were just going to manage it. So it's on a subscription. We bought all the technology and are selling it to them on a monthly basis. They were cool with it because they didn't know how much they're going to need, and they figured we did. So this represents a huge opportunity for us because cannabis is a growing industry in California. And there are no solutions to solve the problems that they have around a lot of the regulation of power use, water use, environmental protection, right? The marijuana guys, by the way, will argue that they need protection from the agricultural growers that are spraying pesticides and stuff outside of their grow facilities because by regulation, essentially, pot has to be organic. Can't use pesticides, can't use bad stuff. Has to be tested all the time for that. So there's opportunities for environmental protection within the facility to see what kind of things are creeping in. So we think that Commander is going to play a big role in helping us craft a solution that can provide a central point of control for all of these systems that our clients are going to be running, and that we can take that solution, working with the 2 or 3 cannabis growers that we're working with right now, and potentially take that everywhere in California. A lot of business for everybody because you guys will never stop with the pot. So, got a couple minutes here, and I just want to leave you with one final thought as you explore this concept of managed services in your world and how you can take advantage of it. And that is, this is a saying that I use with my team all the time. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't get stuck in trying to solve a problem without testing it and and understanding that you can change, you can course correct. Just like we did when we first started our managed services practice and said, how much do we charge? Our rates then are not what our rates are now. But back then, we were making money. We guessed a little bit right. And over time, we adjusted and made it righter and righter and righter. And we reached out to our most loyal customers to start. We said, you be the guinea pigs. Let us see if this works for you and if it works for us. And as it turned out, it worked out. So with that, I want to thank you. And I want to let you know I'll be at the session later at 10:45, the case study session. I'll talk a little bit more about the marijuana business if you want to know more about it. And I'll be around, so if you want to stop me and talk to me, feel free. So thank you.